The morning sun painted the city in shades of gold as Elena stepped out of the doctor's office, one hand instinctively resting on her baby bump. At 7 months pregnant, every step felt a little heavier, every thought a little louder. She had come alone, not because she wanted to, but because her husband, Nathaniel, one of the most powerful business tycoons in New York, was too busy to be there. The sound of traffic filled the streets as Elena waited for a cab. Her mind swirled with emotions, excitement for the baby, exhaustion from her lonely routine, and the quiet ache of missing Nathaniel. Once, their love story was the kind that inspired movies, a billionaire falling head over heels for a woman from a humble background. He had promised her the world, and for a while, he had delivered it. Romantic dinners, handwritten letters, stolen vacations to Paris. They had it all. But as the years passed and his empire grew, his presence in her life became a rare luxury. Just as Elena was lost in thought, a sleek black car came to a halt near the curb. The tinted window rolled down, and her breath caught in her throat. It was Nathaniel. Elena. His voice carried a mix of surprise and concern. She froze for a moment before walking closer. "Nathaniel, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," he said, stepping out of the car. He was dressed in his usual sharp navy suit, his hair perfectly in place, his face looking just as handsome as the day they first met. For a second, the city noise seemed to fade, leaving only the two of them standing face to face. Elena felt tears sting her eyes. She hadn't seen him in almost 2 weeks. They lived in the same penthouse, but existed like strangers, separated by meetings, business calls, and an ocean of unspoken words. "I had a doctor's appointment," she said softly, her hand still resting on her belly. Nathaniel's eyes immediately dropped to her bump, and something shifted in his expression. He moved closer, almost hesitantly, as though afraid she might step back. "Is everything okay?" he asked, his tone softer now.
"Yes."
"Everything's fine," she replied, though her voice carried a quiet sadness. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was filled with everything they hadn't said in months: the missed dinners, the lonely nights, the growing distance that threatened to swallow them whole. Nathaniel finally broke the silence. "Get in. I'll drop you home." Elena hesitated. Part of her wanted to refuse, to punish him for all the times he hadn't been there. But another part of her longed to be near him, even if just for a short drive. Without a word, she opened the door and got in. The ride was quiet at first, the city rushing by as if it were indifferent to the storm brewing inside them. Nathaniel's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, and Elena kept her gaze on the window, watching the blur of buildings. Finally, he spoke. "I'm sorry I missed the last appointment. And the one before that." She turned to look at him, surprised by the vulnerability in his voice. "You've missed a lot more than just appointments, Nathaniel." Her words hit him like a punch, and for a moment, he didn't respond. The light turned red, and the car came to a halt. He looked at her then, really looked at her, at the exhaustion in her eyes, at the strength it took to carry his child and keep going despite feeling abandoned. "Elena, I know I've been gone. I know I haven't been the husband you deserve." His voice cracked slightly, "But I want to make it right." Something in her chest softened, though she wasn't ready to forgive him yet. "Words aren't enough, Nathaniel. I need you to show up.
"For me."
For our baby." The light turned green, and the car started moving again. But something had shifted between them. The air was still heavy, but it carried a glimmer of hope. By the time they reached their penthouse, Elena felt a strange mix of relief and fear. Relief that Nathaniel had finally seen her, fear that it might just be another fleeting moment before he disappeared into his empire again. As she stepped out of the car, Nathaniel caught her hand gently. "Elena, dinner tonight. No calls, no meetings. Just you and me, please." For the first time in weeks, Elena smiled faintly. "All right," she said. Nathaniel watched her walk toward the elevator, her silhouette framed by the golden glow of the lobby lights. He knew this was his second chance, maybe his last, to bring back the woman he fell in love with, to be the man she once believed he was. And as the elevator doors closed, Elena placed a hand on her belly and whispered softly, "Your daddy is trying, little one. Let's see if he means it this time." That evening, Elena stood before the full-length mirror in their bedroom, running a hand over the soft fabric of her dress. It wasn't anything glamorous, just a simple navy blue maternity dress. But tonight felt different. Tonight, she wanted to look like the woman Nathaniel had fallen in love with, even if she wasn't sure what he truly saw in her anymore. The dining area had been transformed when she stepped out, candles lit, the city skyline glowing through the tall windows, and soft instrumental music playing in the background. For a moment, Elena just stood there, surprised. This wasn't Nathaniel's assistant's doing. This was him. Nathaniel walked in from the kitchen, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, holding 2 plates. "I cooked," he said sheepishly. Elena raised an eyebrow. "You cooked?" He nodded, a boyish grin tugging at his lips. "Well, technically, I followed a recipe video. It's edible, I promise." She laughed softly, the sound surprising even herself. It had been so long since they had shared a moment like this. "This is nice," she admitted, sitting down. Dinner was simple, pasta, salad, and freshly baked bread, but it felt like a feast. Not because of the food, but because of the effort. For once, Nathaniel wasn't checking his phone, wasn't distracted by business calls. His attention was fully on her. "How have you been feeling?" he asked, his tone gentle, genuine. Elena hesitated. Tired, scared sometimes, excited too, but mostly lonely. The word hung between them like a heavy weight. Nathaniel reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm sorry, Elena. I thought I was doing all this for us, for the baby, expanding the business, securing our future. But I see now that I was losing the very thing I was trying to protect." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I never cared about the money, Nathaniel. I just wanted you." He moved to sit beside her, his thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. "You still have me, if you'll let me stay." Something shifted inside Elena then, like a door opening after being locked for too long. She leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder. "I want that, but I need you to be here, not just tonight. I need you every day, Nathaniel." "I promise," he said, his voice steady. "From this moment, I'm here. No more missed appointments. No more empty dinners. You and our child. You're my first priority." For the first time in months, Elena believed him. The weeks that followed were different. Nathaniel made good on his word. He started rescheduling meetings, delegating work, coming home earlier. He even accompanied her to the next doctor's appointment, holding her hand as they listened to their baby's heartbeat. And that night, as they drove back from the hospital, Nathaniel pulled over by the same street where he had first seen her that morning weeks ago. "This is where it started to change," he said quietly. Elena smiled, resting her head on the seat. "I guess fate had to stop your car in the middle of the road to get your attention." He chuckled softly. "I'm glad it did. I almost lost you without even realizing it." "You still have time to make it right," she said, her fingers lacing with his. The months passed, and their love grew stronger, rooted not in the glamour of billionaire lifestyles, but in small, intentional acts, late-night talks, shared meals, quiet walks in the park. Nathaniel began to see that his greatest empire wasn't the one he was building in boardrooms. It was the family he was creating right there beside him. Finally, the day came. Elena went into labor in the middle of the night, and Nathaniel rushed her to the hospital, his heart pounding. He stayed by her side through every contraction, whispering encouragement, holding her hand until she nearly crushed his fingers. When the sound of their baby's cry filled the room, Nathaniel felt something inside him break open, a floodgate of emotions he didn't know he had been holding back. He kissed Elena's forehead, tears streaming down his face. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, placing the tiny newborn in Elena's arms. Nathaniel looked at the fragile little life that had just entered the world, his heart swelling with pride and awe. "She's perfect," he whispered. Elena smiled, exhausted but radiant. "Meet your daddy, little one." In that moment, Nathaniel understood that every deal, every late night at the office, every dollar earned. None of it mattered if he wasn't here. This, Elena, their daughter, their little family, this was his life's greatest achievement. Months later, as he stood on the balcony of their penthouse, holding his daughter against his chest while Elena laughed softly behind him, Nathaniel reflected on the road that had brought them here. The day their paths crossed on that busy street wasn't just an accident of timing, it was a wake-up call. And as the city lights twinkled far below, Nathaniel made himself a silent vow. He would never let business, pride, or ambition steal these moments again. Because sometimes, fate doesn't just cross your path. It stops you in your tracks, hands you a second chance, and waits to see if you're brave enough to take it. Nathaniel had taken it. And for the first time in a long time, he was exactly where he was meant to be.